look at all that steam. Looks like a Southern Living casserole, doesn't it? It's hot as a son of a gun. I'm gonna burn my face off with that. I was stupid enough to try it while it was scalding hot. Welcome to Highfalutin Low Carb, the weekly web series where we find and test the best low carb recipes this crazy internet has to offer. Today, we're going to be tackling a recipe remake. You heard that right. We're going to take a recipe that is not normally low carb friendly and see what we can do to convert it into a low carb recipe that's just as delicious. Let's get started. Now, in this age of digital media, I am somebody who still loves a traditional magazine. And one of my favorites of all time that I don't think I've ever had a day in my life without one on my coffee table is Southern Living. If you don't know it, it's very popular in the American South. It's just a staple and always has been on every grandparent, aunt, uncle, and now as a grown man on my coffee table, I've always got a Southern Living, at least one, if not a stack. So this is the July issue of Southern Living, and July 2017. And as I was perusing, I came across a recipe that looked delicious, but wasn't very low carb friendly. And it is Zucchini Rice Gratin. And I thought, what better way to show you guys how I take a recipe and low carbify it. So let's get started. Now, I mean this joking and seriously. If watching people make regular food is a trigger for you, turn away just for about 30 or 40 seconds. I'm going to talk through this recipe just as it's presented in Southern Living magazine, and I'm going to make it. Because how can we compare a low-carb recipe with its original version if we don't make the original? So it's not going to go to waste, don't worry. I have plenty of friends who, while supporting my low-carb journey, are not low-carbers themselves who will absolutely devour this. So don't worry, the food's not going to go to waste. Just talking through the ingredients here. The first thing is breadcrumbs, panko breadcrumbs. That's obviously a no-go. But you know what does work as a good breadcrumb topping for a gratin? Is pork rinds. And I know. Hear me out. Plain pork rinds. Let's try it. Then the Parmesan Reggiano cheese, easy. Olive oil, easy. Now here's a big stickler. A whole large onion. That's about 2 cups of onions. That in and of itself is almost 30 carbs. So we're going to have to kick that way back to probably about a half a cup or less of onions. I do think the onion flavor is important, but holy smokes, we can't do 2 cups of onions. Now there's also finely chopped garlic. That's okay because it's just a teaspoon. They're adding flour and milk, 2% milk, as a thickening to make the roux, I guess you could say. We're going to do some other things there. We can use some cream cheese and some heavy whipping cream to sort of approximate a cheese sauce or a bechamel sauce. All right, so flour. Then we got 2 pounds of fresh zucchini, roughly chopped. And here's the other stickler. It's obviously Zucchini Rice Gratin, so it has a half a cup of uncooked long grain rice. So now when we do this, we're going to try it with cauliflower rice, and we're going to see how that works. Now, uncooked rice usually triples in volume. So we've got a half a cup of uncooked rice, so we're going to do a cup and a half of cooked grated cauliflower and use that as our rice. And then thyme, cayenne pepper, salt, and pepper. So we're pretty easy there. So I'm going to make this now, and I'm going to do my best to just taste it and compare it with the other version. But hang on, we'll be right back. Now, I also wanted to point out that this particular recipe in this issue of Southern Living says it's inspired by Julia Child's classic recipe for her zucchini gratin. I happen to also read cookbooks like I read novels, and I do have all of Julia's. And this is her Zucchini Rice Gratin recipe. And as I was looking at this, I thought, you know, if I can convert this to something low carb, this would be a perfect, beautiful side dish for some grilled stuff out. You know, it's summer right now, and in the South at least, for sure, everybody who's got a garden is overrun with zucchini. So there's no problem finding zucchini in town. Usually got people dropping it off at your front door because they got too much of it. So anyway, I thought, what better way to do this? So I think that Miss Julia also felt the same way, because she says, serve with roasts, steaks, chops, calf's liver, broiled fish or chicken, or as a first course. So this is going to be great with a grilled steak. They didn't really do much of a change here. I noticed it's interesting. Southern Living says, this is comforting yet fresh and clean. It's not overloaded with heavy cream or cheese. Well, we about to fix that. But the irony is she calls for more cheese than the original zucchini gratin recipe by Miss Julia Child. So it's funny that she thinks she's making it lighter when in fact there's no cream in this at all. There's just milk and some butter and less cheese than the other gal used, or guy, whoever wrote this. So, all right, we're going to get to work here. But before we do, I wanted to talk about nutritional information. And whoa, Nelly. All right. So just for giggles, I did the math on this because for some reason Southern Living doesn't put nutritional information with their recipes. Guys, I love you. I have read you for 42 years, seriously. So I love your work, but please put some nutritional information in there. It's pretty easy to do, and it really would help. Okay, so just talking carbs, if you make 6 servings out of this, because it also doesn't say how many servings this is. It depends on, I guess, whether you eat it as a first course or as a side dish. 6 servings of the original recipe from Southern Living is over 28 grams of carbs per serving. So, no go. Today, with just those few little changes that I talked about, we're going to get this down to just over 6.5 carbs per serving. And I hope we're going to do it without sacrificing much of the taste and texture. So, okay, let's get started. All right, guys, she's beautiful. Look at that. Looks like a Southern Living casserole, doesn't it? It's beautiful, no doubt. I actually set off the fire alarms, so that little chirp is going to happen for the next 30 minutes because we turned the broiler on, so just forgive that if you hear this. But there she stands. It's a beautiful casserole, crispy. There's no liquid. It's all the rice has done its job, all those things that rice does. So what I'm going to do is just remove this, keep it on the stove in the back while we attack the actual recipe that we're here to make. We've got to make this, but take 3/4 of the carbs out of it. And that's going to be hard to do and maintain this beautiful conglomeration of a casserole. So stay tuned. All right, so now to attack this recipe. There's a couple of things we need to do to prepare first. And one of those is prepare the cauliflower. We want to pre-cook that. When we cooked the other casserole, there's a lot of liquid there, but there's also a lot of rice. And that absorbs all the liquid that's coming out of the zucchini, as well as the cream and the other things we added. We don't have the luxury of having rice to absorb and do all of its work for us. So literally, we're going to have to, when we make our cauliflower, we're going to have to do the microwave trick where we put it in for 3 or 4 minutes after we grate it on a box grater and take out some moisture. And also, we need to prepare the breadcrumbs, which is actually going to be pork rinds. So we're going to take, this is 30 grams of pork rinds. We just need 1/3 of a cup here. So I may actually adjust my nutritional information based on how much we actually get out of this. So what we do, take a little Ziploc bag. This is 2 servings of pork rinds, 30 grams. Zip it up, get the air out, and just as you suspect, we're just going to beat the devil out of this. So you're just making breadcrumbs, making crumbs. Well, that's the way to do it right there. You do have to get the air out the bag, though. Now, don't be afraid of, I know a lot of people that don't like pork rinds. And, you know, it's, if you get a plain pork rind, there's not a lot of flavor there. It's not like it just tastes like bacon or pig skin, or which is pig skin, right? You know that. But it's not like it has a tremendously porky flavor at all. In fact, a lot of people make cereal, believe it or not, breakfast cereal, out of pork rinds because it has such a benign flavor. So we're going to use that as our breadcrumbs. We just want some crunch on top. So that looks pretty nice right there. But see, I only need, get out of the way. I only need 1/3 cup of this because you only needed 1/4 cup of the panko, but I'm expanding that a little bit because the panko sort of absorbed some of the fat that was on top. We don't have that luxury either. So, 1/3 cup pork rinds. Is that 1/3 cup? Yeah. And I still had about 1/3 cup left. So truthfully, I'm going to adjust my macros where I've calculated this recipe because I only used half of the pork rinds that I suspected. So they're actually so low in carb, though, it's not going to affect the carb count hardly at all, actually. So to our pork rinds, we're going to add the 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese. And now for our cauliflower, and this is a little bit messy. Now, I've cleaned up a little bit. Now, here we've got an unknown quantity of cauliflower. I just need 1.5 cups of it after it's been cooked. So what we're going to do is steam this in the microwave. Put it in a microwave-safe bowl, put a plate on top, throw it in the microwave for 3 minutes. Let's start there, and then be careful taking it out, and let's see where we get. From there, we're going to squeeze it out in our cloth. So, in the microwave. Okay, so we've got our microwave cauliflower, and be careful with this plate, because it will steam. It is hot. So let's check the temperature. Let's check this. All right, it needs a few more minutes, I do believe. This was a fairly large quantity. So I'm going to put it in for about 2 more minutes. So it'll have been a total of 5 minutes. All right, let's come right back to that. Now, while that's in the microwave, we're going to go ahead and start building our casserole. It calls for olive oil, but in this recipe, I think I'm going to switch to bacon fat because we've got to give ourselves all the chance we can to add flavor and interest here because we don't have that rice and all the other ingredients that we aren't allowed to have. So get out of there. I'm going to start with start with a tablespoon of bacon fat. We're going to just saute our onions lightly. And now this is one of the big change we made was the amount of onions. The other recipe called for 2 cups of onions, a whole large onion, which is almost 30 carbs. So that's just a no-go for us, as you know. So we went with 1/2 cup, okay? 1/2 cup of diced yellow onion. And we're just going to soften this a little bit and get some color on it. We'll go from there. My cauliflower is about to come out of the microwave. Okay, so our cauliflower's done. So we did quite a bit of cooking here. So what we're going to do is not touch that. We're going to dump this. I've got a bowl here with cheesecloth in it. And we're just going to let this cool in this cheesecloth lined bowl. And then we'll wring this out and pull out as much moisture as we can before we continue and measure out our 1.5 cups, okay? All right, so we let this guy live here for just a minute and cool down so we can touch it. And this needs to be on medium heat, so I'm going to turn this up so we can get to cooking here. Come on. And let's just saute this onion until it gets soft, translucent, a little bit brown on the edges. This is really one of our only hopes for flavor. I mean, there's a reason the other recipe has 2 cups of onions in it, because onions are an aromatic and they add a lot of flavor. So we're going to try to extract as much flavor out of as we can out of the few little old onions we're allowed to have. So when I cook normally, especially low carb, before low carb, I wasn't really a measurer. You know, I was just, a little of this, a dab of that, and just worked by instinct and sight. But since switching to low carb and trying to do these recipes, I'm trying to remember to measure, because such a small little thing like too many onions can really, really throw off the macro ratio in a recipe. So you've really got to measure. This would be the one time that I would say, yep, pull out a 1/2 cup dry measuring cup and chop your onion and scoop it up in it and make sure you're only using a half a cup. That's the only way to be sure. My eyes sometimes deceive me and says, oh yeah, that's a half cup, when really it's about a cup and a half. You know, just wishful thinking on my eyeballs part, I guess. So we're almost here. This just needs 5 to 7 minutes or so. To this, I'm going to add 1 garlic clove that's been minced. Again, another aromatic, a lot of flavor. This only needs maybe 60 seconds here. Not long. You will burn it and you do not want to. So to this, once you start to smell that garlic, we're going to go ahead and add our zucchini. And this is where it kind of gets helter-skelter because, woo, this is 2 pounds of zucchini. I measured it out, weighed it. Come on now. And it fills this little skillet up. And the original Southern Living recipe only calls for you at this point to mix your zucchini like this with your wet ingredients. And the reason why is because the thing is going to spend 40 minutes in the oven letting the rice cook. So your zucchini is going to cook in that amount of time. Well, we don't have the luxury of having rice to cook. So our rice is going to be the cauliflower. It's pre-cooked. And the worst thing we can do is let that rice get mushy. And if you've made cauliflower rice or mashed cauliflower, you know there's only a small window between cauliflower rice and mashed cauliflower. So we don't want to cross that border. We still want a little bit of the bite of the cauliflower when we get there. So my point is that we need to cook this zucchini, actually physically saute it here in the skillet before it goes in the oven. So we need to get a good, 7 to 10 minutes on this in this skillet on medium heat to let this cook, because the final casserole is going to only spend probably 15 minutes in the oven as opposed to the 40 minutes that the Southern Living recipe stayed in the oven. So we want to do our cooking here on the stove and let some of this moisture go away. Let us get some color on this and then assemble it. Now also, I cooked the last one in a 9x13 casserole that was well greased, it said, and you could definitely do the same thing here. Once you've got everything browned, and then throw it in 9x13. However, the recipe also said, or cook this in a skillet and then an oven-proof skillet, and then just put the skillet in the stove and use that as your casserole pan. So that's what I'm going to do with this one that we're working on now. I'm just going to use my cast iron skillet here, and then once it's time to go in the oven, we're taking it right to the stove, and it's going to go right in the oven and cook in this pan. And then we'll finish it off just like we did with the other one by putting our breadcrumbs on the top and letting it sit under the broiler for 4 or 5 minutes to get a nice golden brown on the top. So we need to soften our cream cheese. Now the other sauce, recipe basically made a bechamel sauce. It was flour and milk and cream. We don't have that luxury. So what we're going to do is use some heavy cream and some cream cheese. So to make sure that this is all incorporated well, I'm actually going to put this 2 ounces of cream cheese. I'm going to drop it in to my 1/3 cup of heavy cream. And I'm going to put this in the microwave for just a little bit and let it get soft so that when I pour this over, I'm not just stuck with a big glob of cream cheese in the middle. It actually has sort of already melted into the milk, into the cream, not the milk. So this goes in the microwave for a few minutes. Okay, we're back. Sorry, had to swap out the battery. I lost you somewhere along the way. I've added my spices to this already, okay? While we're sauteing the zucchini here towards the end, I've added a teaspoon of kosher salt, a teaspoon of dried thyme, 1/8 of a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Okay, so here's our cream cheese and our heavy cream. Those have melted together nicely. I just wanted that all to be incorporated before we actually dumped it into the pan here. While we're working on that, here we go to our cauliflower. This is the same thing we did for the hash brown battle video. Look at all that steam. For the hash brown battle video, we've got a cheesecloth here, and we're just going to gather this up. This has been cooked in the microwave for 5 minutes because it was a fairly large amount. And now we just, look at that, squeeze. Ooh, it's hot, still hot. And a lot of moisture is coming out of that. See, if we were cooking this with rice, the moisture wouldn't matter because it's going to, make rice, but we don't have that. This is our rice. So, gosh, I don't know if this is going to be a cup and a half or not. I'm sort of doubtful. Sort of doubtful. This is a half cup measure, and it's going in. What is this? How much is this? So that's a half cup. 1 cup. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's going to be right on it. That is approximately a cup and a half of cooked cauliflower. So let's just fluff this up a little bit. And there's our rice, folks. Okay, so from here, we really just need to assemble the whole shebang and go straight to the oven with it. Now I'm going to turn this down. Ooh, not up. Turn this down. I don't want this cream to burn as soon as it hits the pan, man, because it's gonna. It's probably going to be easier to stir it if I go ahead and add the cream now. I'm going to add this. This is a half a cup of Parmesan cheese, grated Parmigiano Reggiano, and this is our cream cheese and our heavy cream. This is replacing the bechamel sauce, or the flour and cream and fat that we had in the original Southern Living recipe. We don't have that luxury, as we all know. So this is what we're doing in place of it. So hold on. So let's incorporate this as best we can. And then, oh yeah, I think that's going to do nicely. Let's go ahead and add our cauliflower to this. Our rice, right? The only rice we get to eat these days. Okay, so do your best to incorporate all this. Turn this off. Turn the heat off. Gosh almighty, look at there. Y'all, I'm gonna make a mess. Just do your best to get this combined. So get up all in these corners, good. Okay, this one's going in the oven at 425, just like the other one. We'll see you in a minute. Woo! Look at this beauty, guys. Whew, it is hot, seriously hot. Put that on there because you don't ever want to touch that. So I just took this out of the oven. It's been in for 15 minutes. We're going to now bump the oven up to broil high, and we're going to add our breadcrumb, quote unquote, breadcrumb topping. This is our pork rinds and our Parmesan cheese, just to give it something nice and brown. And then this goes under the broiler for, gosh, 3 to 5 minutes, if that. Just long enough to get golden brown and delicious. Okay, we're going back in the oven with this, and then we're going to taste. All right. There she is, and she's a pretty thing. Okay, hold on, let me get our other guy. All right, so here we are. This is the original Southern Living recipe, just as written. Let me pull out the carb counts for you, just so you know what we're dealing with. This is the original Southern Living recipe, just as it was made, and it looks beautiful, and I guarantee you it's going to be delicious, because everything they do is usually fantastic. This is 9.5 grams of fat per serving. If you make 6 servings out of this, 9.5 grams of fat, 28 net carbs, and 10.5 grams of protein. So not really doable for us in a low-carb diet. The highfalutin low-carb version of Southern Living's Zucchini and Rice Casserole, we got this down to 17 grams of fat, 8.5 grams of protein per serving if you make 6, and 6.5 carbs. That's pretty remarkable. Big difference there. So what does it taste like? That's the most important thing. Okay, so let's just go for it. That's the Southern Living casserole. It is very ricey, as you can see, which obviously looks delicious. So I'm going to taste it, but don't judge me. This is for you. I mean, we had to see what it tastes like before we made a fake version of it, right? Oh God, that rice looks good. That zucchini looks good. Yeah. Just as you would expect. a creamy, delicious casserole with rice and zucchini. It's beautiful, tastes wonderful. Yeah, but we knew that was going to be good, right? So, that was it there. Now for the test. Let's just come in here in the sides. I can tell you already it feels much creamier and softer. There's not any resistance like the rice provided. Trying to make a pretty scoop so that when I take a photo here of it here in a minute for the thumbnail, it still looks worth a darn and doesn't look terrible. Oh my gosh. That is beautiful too. It's different, but not that different. I mean, it's pretty close. It is hot as a son of a gun. I'm gonna burn my face off with that. So let's just see. Good Lord. Hold on. Is it too hot to eat? Okay. I was stupid enough to try it while it was scalding hot. It's good. It is very good. It's actually not a whole lot of difference in the actual flavor. The texture is a little different, and truthfully, I might have decided to not cook my cauliflower quite as long as I did. Instead of 5 minutes, maybe go 3. Because you do lose a little bit of that texture, but it's there. You can definitely taste the grains of rice. I actually, you know what? Prefer the sauce and creaminess and cheesiness of our version, our highfalutin blow version, as opposed to the Southern Living version. Theirs is a little dry, actually, kind of. Now, in retrospect, seeing it, it's a little dry. I mean, it's good. I'd eat the hell out of it, for sure. But I would definitely go to town on this. And you know what is even better? That pork rind crunch on top is better than the breadcrumbs, the panko breadcrumbs. Those panko breadcrumbs, a quarter of a cup had 18 grams of carbs in the panko and only 1 carb in the third of a cup of the breadcrumbs, and it's crunchier and better than the breadcrumbs. So, tip, Southern Living, maybe pick up some pork rinds at the store. Wow, that is good. Serve this alongside some grilled steak or some grilled chicken, something like that. This is delicious. All right, guys, so there you have it. That's how we go about breaking down a recipe and converting it into a low-carb version. This particular recipe, there wasn't a whole lot to do. Certainly baked goods and other things are a little more difficult, so this was a nice way for us to get started. But you got to think about not only ingredients, but you see, you also have to think about technique. This cooked for a lot less time. It spent more time on the stove than it did in the oven. There was a lot less liquid in it. But with a few little changes, you can see how easy it is to take a favorite recipe or something that you might be inspired from a magazine or a cookbook, and make a low-carb version of it. So there you have it. We'll do this one again soon with another favorite recipe or another, maybe even a family recipe. But I appreciate you being with me. If you like this video, please hit the like button. If you're a subscriber, please subscribe, and we'll check you back here soon. Good to see you. Bye-bye. Now, if you liked this video, hit the like button below, or better yet, like this video and subscribe to our channel. These videos are a way for me to maintain my focus on a low-carb eating plan. I've personally experienced the weight loss and better health that a low-carb lifestyle can produce, so I appreciate you guys coming along for the journey. We make videos every week, so if there's a low-carb recipe out there you'd like me to try, let me know in the comments below. We'll see you again soon.